Green Lantern issue 1, Jeremy Adams writing with Zermanico on the art. We have Hal Jordan returning to Earth, hitting up Carol Ferris.
This felt like Rebirth Part 2, and I mean that as a compliment. It was just Hal jumping back into being a hero on Earth, which is something that we have not seen in quite some time. So, very much a fan of that. However, I totally forgot that the United Planets had taken over the Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah, I forgot that as well.
So that being, and now Hal essentially being an outlaw, like he was supposed to turn his ring in because they deemed Earth too chaotic to require their presence. Despite us having 4 Earth Lanterns, 6 if you count Simon and Jess, which I don't know if they are. But yeah.
Yeah, in what world would you not count them?
Well, because it didn't seem like they counted them there in the little blurb at the beginning of there was like a recap page kind of deal. It didn't seem like it mentioned it. I could have sworn it mentioned 4 Earth Lanterns.
They've reassigned the Earth Lanterns to other sectors. It doesn't say a number.
Gotcha.
Nah, so it's just all of them.
Then they got reassigned too, which makes it seem like the United Planet is up to some shady stuff, personally. But I will say that I love that Jeremy Adams didn't take time to get into that. It was all very much focused on Hal and his return to Coast City. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jeremy Adams clearly's got a fondness for a very particular era, and we've seen that in his Wally West flashbook. And I think here, I've been saying for a long time, one of my favorite things about the Green Lanterns book with Simon and Jess was that it was, not always, but it was often set on Earth with their supporting cast, their families, and things like that. And I think Green Lantern, well, it's kind of funny how it's almost built enough like Green Lantern characters now that are all Green Lanterns who explore space that you can effectively have an ensemble even when they're out doing space stuff.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes miss the tether of actual supporting characters, and sometimes, honestly, it gets a bit dull sometimes when all of the characters are all lanterns. Like, see when it's all lanterns, whether it's the Earth Lanterns or Kilowog's there, or you've got Yellow Lanterns. I'm like, where's the regular people that factor into this? Because I miss that sometimes.
When Salak is the regular person because he's kind of dispatch of the Corps, and he kind of just stays there. So them being back on Earth and Hal mentioning his brothers or his brother was a nice touch, and him back with at Ferris to be a pilot. I think that's all very interesting, but it also didn't feel like it was retreading on a lot of stuff, because it felt like here's Hal coming to, like Earth life has passed him by, like Earth didn't stop, so things have changed, and now he kind of is almost like a man out of time again, where he's, in the story, he goes to work for Ferris Aircraft, and she's like, yeah, we don't really have pilots anymore because they're all drones. And I was like, there's nothing. So it was kind of reminding me of Top Gun as well there, which I think...
Well, I mean, I think you're glossing over how it's told, because it doesn't tell us that. She didn't say that, any of that. We get a reveal after a flight sequence when he crashes the plane that he's not actually in the plane. It was just a drone, he was flying it remotely.
Right.
So it's kind of a reveal in the book. That's how it's told. And, I think the issue is pretty solid. It's mostly a status quo setting up issue where it's like, okay, he's back. It does the fun little introduction of Carol where she tries to avoid him and get away before, because she hears he's outside and he's just trying to get away, but he catches up to her. And she's like, shit, I don't want to speak to you. Every time you show up, it's trouble. And she reveals she's got a boyfriend. She's with someone now. I could definitely see the potential here of them just retreading familiar beats, if not of Green Lantern itself, just in general, because I feel like this is a very sort of, typical done story beat. But it is nice to have Carol back again. It is nice to have some of this chemistry back. I will say Hal definitely did come off as an entitled dickhead at one point in this book, when he's showboating in the plane when he's flying it, and he ends up crashing it, and Carol quite rightly says, do you have any idea how much that jet cost because you were trying to show off? And he just kind of brushes it off. And I'm like, I don't know, you're kind of being a dick here, Hal.
Sir, you're a liability. Like, we can't have you be doing this. Like, that was still an aircraft that crashed, you know?
Yeah, like, it is supposed to be taken that way, you know, to be fair. I don't think it's try to, like, paint over it and pretend that he didn't do something wrong there. It's definitely showing you that he's kind of struggling because he's not been on Earth. He doesn't have, like, any, like, financial, like, anything, you know?
$50 to his name in a bank account.
He's been in space for such a long time. He doesn't have anything, so he's come to Carol for a job, and she's reluctantly given him it. And we sort of see that. So it's mostly the status quo of, like, okay, here's where his main supporting cast is now, that being Carol. Here's what his struggles are now. But we also see that he's back as Green Lantern, and that people are excited about the fact that they have Green Lantern back in Coast City. That's pretty cool. It does, like, a split time thing here, where it shows you, like, sort of the... you know, I didn't realize this right away, but it turns out he didn't actually have his powers when he first came back. You know, it kind of... We see him up front with the powers, and then it goes back and shows that he kind of, like, absorbs the willpower energy from the villain, who's using, like, an old manhunter suit that they found somewhere. And this big fight, you know, because basically there's a fight. Because I almost got a little confused because it skips back to the 3 months ago part of the story, and he hears on the radio when he's, like, sitting at these brothers, like, cabin or whatever it is, and there's like a fight. There's a villain doing stuff in the city, and he immediately grabs his car keys and starts driving. And I'm like, Hal, why aren't you flying? Yeah, why aren't you flying to the city? And then obviously it becomes clear, oh no, he doesn't have his powers right now. He, like, this is how he reforms his ring or absorbs the energy to actually use it again or whatever it may be.
Because once that intro happened where it says, like, he's kind of an outlaw, I was wondering, okay, but if he's, like, an outlaw from the core, how does he have a ring? You know, because that would seem to be counterintuitive.
Yeah, but to be fair, Matt, wasn't his ring already kind of unique?
Yeah, right. So, because judging, I mean, if it's the same one, if I remember from Hal and Pals, he forged it from his own will. So, like, his ring really isn't, you know, Owen issue. It was his own. So, but, like, yeah, he doesn't have a battery or anything. So he does charge it off of the Manhunter energy. So.
Yeah, you should know this better than I do because you actually read that shit.
Right, but it's been a minute though.
Yeah, so Hal doesn't have an issued ring. You know, he doesn't have. I mean, the Guardian. I mean, that's the text at the start explains that the Guardians aren't around anymore. So United Planets are actually in charge of the Green Lanterns right now, and they've sent all the Earth Lanterns elsewhere. They deem Sector 2814 to be too volatile, so they've just kind of have abandoned it. Which, it might be leading to a bigger story down the line potentially, and whatever their motive is for that. So it's left Hal kind of on his own as the only Green Lantern on Earth, and that's kind of where we are. So it definitely feels like it's harkening back to, like, a sort of, you know, you say rebirth, but I'm not saying it feels like a Silver Age story, but it feels like it's taking it back to the basics of when it was a Silver Age and he was just a test pilot. And
before there was this whole Green Lantern Corps, like, we knew there was a Space Force because of Abin Sur, right? But this was more where he was not confined to Earth, but dealing with Earth problems, kind of hard traveling heroes era. But to me that's exciting because to see him, interact with the people of Coast City. Like, the opening sequence is him, these people trapped in a mine, and then slowly as they're talking about how they're trapped, this green light washes over them to have, like, this really awesome reveal that Hal's getting them out.
Yeah. So, and there's a little tease there. It looks like Sinestro's hanging about in the bar. With a hood up. So we'll see where that goes.
Because the last time we saw him was the Snyder Justice League stuff, right? With, like, the infrared lantern, or what was it, ultraviolet lantern?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the last time I remember seeing Sinestro.
It's been a long while. I think it just feels refreshing because Green Lantern's been kind of stuck as the space book for so long, and while it makes sense why it has been, I do think the variety and having a more Earth-based Green Lantern story, at the very least alongside the typical space stuff, makes a lot of sense to me. There's this villain calling himself Steel Fury who's attacking the city in the 3 months ago time period. Hal shows up, tries to talk him down, especially since, like, the armor's dangerous because it's a Manhunter
Right. It's alien tech.
Yeah, see, it's alien tech that he's wearing. Yeah. But he ends up absorbing all the energy, and the last page is the full page spread of him with his Green Lantern outfit on for the first time since he's come back.
Right.
Not the first time in the book, because we're jumping around time-wise, but yeah, so it's just, there's not much to the story of the first issue. It's more about just establishing where he is, what his status is, what the status with Carol is. It says next time we're going to meet Carol's fiance, so that's going to be something we're going to be dealing with. I think the story's solid enough. I like that it's not shying away from him being kind of this selfish prick. Not in an super unlikable way, but he does have faults. He's not.
Yeah.
So he does come across like he's a bit self-absorbed.
He's cocky. He's got that pilot energy, But
the big thing here, though, is Zermanico's art, which is
it's so crisp, so clean. Like going from the superhero stuff where he's fighting Steel Fury to the Carol standing in the office, like there's range in this, and it all looks great.
And the sequential art, and even just those simple moments where it's Carol biting her lip when she's like thinking, second guessing if she should run away or not before Hal sees her. They're just good little character beats that sort of make the characters feel alive and make this a more enjoyable issue as a result. Honestly, the action's fine, but the character beats are what make it kind of sing as a better issue.
Stuff like Hal calling her Queen of Zamaron, and everyone's like, "What did he just say? What did he just call you?" And her reaction on that too, Zermanico just nails. So all the banter stuff too looks great. Like there's definitely a flow between him and Adams.
Yeah, and you've got him sitting looking up at the stars at one point, and that's very pretty. You've got the actual action stuff with him in the suit. We talked about the miners who are trapped in the cave or whatever at the start, and the green light coming over them. All of that stuff looks great. Like it feels like an A-tier comic, mainly because of the art. I mean, the writing's fine, and Adams is a solid enough sort of B-tier writer, I would say.
Yeah.
But the art kind of elevates everything here to feeling kind of a bit more special.
Yeah.
So it's definitely left me excited to read more. It was an enjoyable read, and I was expecting an enjoyable read. Will it go above that, just like solid, fun, but never excelling as an amazing comic like The Flash, or will it rise above that sort of tier?
Right.
We'll find out in time. Like we'll see if he's learned some lessons or whatever. But
much like his Flash, Adams is like his joy that's coming through writing these characters is his giddiness makes me giddy too. It's like infectious.
I think the question I have is that with the Flash, like there's a natural momentum forward in that he's having a new kid. We've got the twins, well, not twins, but we've got the kids back, and we've got the whole Flash family, and his run is kind of tried to nudge all that forward a little bit. So while it's harkening back and nostalgic for a specific era of Flash comics, it was taking everything forward. I think what I'm curious about this Green Lantern run is that right now it's just kind of re-establishing an old status quo, more or less. Well, obviously the events of recent Green Lantern have happened, but it's kind of re-establishing this more old school Ferris Air Base, Coast City type of Green Lantern story. My question would be, once he's sort of set up his things, are we going to feel like he's advancing Hal Jordan as a character forward in some meaningful way? Or is it going to feel the entire time like, no, it's mostly just, back to this sort of era and back to, is it just a nostalgia hit, effectively, for an audience who are going to appreciate this? Or is it going to actually try and take him forward and, whatever that means?
What I'm thinking from being a little bit familiar with Adams from Flash, right, is seeing Sinestro pop up kind of didn't make me groan, right, because I'm keeping an open mind. But like I've had enough of the Sinestro and Hal Jordan type stuff. However,
I get it. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so, however, if they make it if Hal has to learn to be an actual outlaw, right, from the United Planets, because I'm sure once they realize that he's active on Earth, it's going to cause problems. Who better to learn from than like the original Outlaw Green Lantern? So if they have that where they're actually they have that mentor kind of thing again, but it's not based off of Sinestro trying to show he's the better Green Lantern. It's actually like, no, you see, sometimes authority is bad.
It kind of just all depends, like, what Sinestro's characterization is, right? Like, is he going to be a villain? Is he an anti-hero? Is he like an old friend where it's complicated, but ultimately he's kind of more of a good guy now? Like, it entirely depends on what direction they're going to take in.
Yeah.
And honestly, right now, I don't know which one I would like more, because they've done all of them, and I've liked different interpretations of Sinestro up until this point so much that I don't even know which one will feel the most fresh at this point. It's, in fact, the same with Carol in a way. Like I had the thought, when it's introducing the fiance, I'm like, okay, the most generic thing they could do here is that the fiance is there to eventually get, to move out the way, either because she decides to leave him or he gets killed or whatever it may be, so that they can have Carol and Hal back together again, right?
Right.
But honestly, at this point, I'm thinking, is that just too safe? Is that just too much of a safe, typical thing that we expect them to do?
I'm hoping they go the opposite, and like Hal and this guy end up becoming buddies. And then maybe that's when he dies, Hal feels responsible instead of him being a wedge between, Carol and the fiance. It becomes this, hey, this guy's not so bad. Oh my God, me being Green Lantern got him killed, type deal.
Well, that's if they kill him. I mean, I don't know if they...
No, yeah, I'm just saying this is. I'm hoping that we don't go down that more milk toasty. This guy kind of sucks. We're hoping for Hal and Carol to get together, because at this point, I'm kind of over Hal and Carol as a unit, because it's been going for so long, right? And it's always just them doing the dance around it, because her Star Sapphire, or she's the boss, and all that stuff. So
but at the same time, I also feel like they've ignored it so much and never given it a proper conclusion. That there is still something to do there if they really. I guess ultimately what we're saying with this conversation is that this is a solid first issue, but there's no signs in it of what it's doing that's going to make it like special. There's no signs of what he's going to be saying about the character or how he's going to take Hal or Hal, Carol, and Sinestro as the three core characters forward. So it's like, I like this issue. I even like it quite a bit, but if it ultimately never starts to feel like it's saying something or doing something new with the character, it might start to become a bit of a problem, where I sort of look at it and go, oh, it's solid enough, but it's not like taking anything forward. And it's not to say that it has to do anything too extreme. I wouldn't say that the Flash book does anything extreme with its characters or concepts, but at the very least it keeps, it's sort of like, okay, we have a family now. Okay, how do we do that? So we have the kids on their own. We flesh them out a little bit. We have, okay, what's it like to be a father to these kids? What's it like for these kids to make friends who may also have powers? And just taking the natural steps forward. I just wonder, are we going to feel like we're doing the same with Hal here? Because obviously the difference between this and Flash is that inherently this has to kind of reset Hal first and reset the status quo. I suppose to an extent so did Flash, but Flash did it in a way where it was like, we have to untangle all the weird continuity bollocks that's gone into it. Whereas here it's more just, okay, Hal's been off doing space shit for literally like a decade at this point in real life. So now we have to reset what his like Earthbound story is going to be.
Right, which is something that I've wanted for a minute, is the superhero Green Lantern. Yeah, so but also I just hope it gets to that level that Flash was at, where like, it might not be amazing, but on a week that it comes out, I get excited that I get to read Flash. And I hope that Green Lantern's that one too, where I'm just like, oh yeah, Green Lantern's out this week.
Well, I mean,
I'm excited to read it.
I'd hope for, like, I'll be happy with that, but it's weird to say you hope for, oh, it's not amazing, but I'm excited to read it. Like, I would hope it's both. Well, like, give me something that's exciting, but also solid as well.
Yeah, but like, just in the fact, like, I read so many books, right? And like to have one that I'm excited for means a lot more. It's like Action's up there, Flash was up there. There are certain books that I look forward to every month or every other week in Flash's case when double shipping. I'm
just saying it's weird to say you're hoping for a 7. Like a 7's Flash has been typically a solid 7, and I've really enjoyed reading it. But it's weird to go into a book and say I hope that's a 7.
Yeah, because after some of the recent Green Lantern stuff, it has not been a 7.
Oh, sure, yeah, it's a step up for Green Lantern in general.
So, yeah,
ever since probably for me Green Lanterns itself, like that Rebirth book, I love that one. Yeah. Admittedly, would Hal be the character I would pick to do my Earth Green Lantern story at this point? No, probably not. I would pick Jess first. I'd pick Kyle second. Hal might be third, but here we are. Hal's the one they've went with. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. We do have a backup though as well, by Philip Kennedy Johnson, and it is a John Stewart story. Although it seems like it's going to be sprinkling in the greater Green Lantern Corps as well.
Yeah, and from different universes it seemed, right? Or is this just this is where I got confused. Granted, I read this super tired. The action that happens towards the back of the story, is that stuff that's going on in another universe, or is this a part of the universe that those characters are in? Like, does that make sense? Like, are these different versions of those characters?
I feel like you worded that in the most roundabout, like...
I did.
Just, is this our universe? That's all you had to ask. Is this our universe?
Right. Because I feel like the John stuff is our universe, right?
Yeah, so so just to explain it, the first half of this backup is John Stewart with his mother. She's happy to see him, and he's like, hey, I'm sticking around for a while. I need a break from all that Green Lantern stuff. I need to, like, touch grass, as the kids say, and be around and help you. And she's got tears in her eyes. It's all very sweet. Solid stuff. And then it says another universe, another time. So to answer your question, in black and white, although technically it's actually different shades of green, it says another universe, another time.
Right.
So yes, different universe.
Right. Because I'm like, again, super tired reading this, and I started seeing the name Gardner, but that did not feel like Guy Gardner, right? And they're throwing Rayner around too, and I'm like, what are we doing?
Well, Rayner's not in this story. They mention Rayner, but he's not here. You don't see him.
Right. So that's where I'm like, are we talking about Kyle Rayner? Is this, like, are these descendants because it's at another time, another universe? Was that just being poetic? That this is what led to John coming back to Earth and needing to touch grass?
Honestly, I think you're way overthinking this. They're just setting up something that John's going to get involved in. That's it.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect.
Right?
I like that the story was short. I'll say that much.
Right? It just establishes that Guy and this young Green Lantern are in some kind of war, and then it seems like the young Green Lantern turns out to be a villain or is puppeteered by the actual villain. Maybe puppeteered is what I'm expecting here, but yeah, it's what's her name here? The Revenant Queen is controlling different Green Lanterns, and they're all purple now because she's controlling them. So it's called Rise of the Revenant Queen Part 1. Yeah. So
very, very cool, scary looking creatures. I'll say that much with the Revenant stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about Green Lantern is that you have so many Green Lantern characters now that it is easy to do a backup if you want to do a good backup. And obviously, Philip Kennedy Johnson's a great writer, so it seems like a good choice to do something. There'll always be part of me that just kind of wishes it was a regular 20-page comic that was structured that way, because I don't like that backups are only 8 or 10 pages, but that's whatever.
Yeah, I get you.
And art's pretty solid as well. In the backup, it's the artist here is Mantos, who I'm not super familiar with, but it wasn't like, I think after Zamanica I was expecting to hit the backup and go and honestly not as much of a drop off as I don't like it as much as Zamanica art, but it pulls its weight. The art looked great. That was the part of the story that stuck out the most to me, and I say that as a Philip Kennedy Johnson fan. Yeah. So honestly, the only critique I had is when the young Green Lantern started acting like sort of villainous. I got a little confused as to whether he was just a villain now, or if he was being puppeteered by this Revenant Queen, who seems to be controlling other Green Lanterns. So I think that's what's happening. But I mean, I'm sure it'll be elaborated more on. In future parts.
Yeah, for sure.
So. No. So pretty solid issue 1 of Green Lantern, both the main and the backup. Like I say, I'm just curious to see if there'll be something kind of new added in that feels like we're taking Hal forward as a character. And maybe him just accepting that Carol's going to marry someone else and being a human looking adult about it is maybe what we can do.
And I would love for Cowgirl to show back up, because we got her early in the Johns run. And then we never saw her again.
Give it up. Johns didn't even remember she existed once he got a few arcs in.
I know. I think someone even asked if he had plans for her. He goes, who? And I was just like, oh. But yeah, just maybe. Just pull from that and I'll be happy.
I doubt it. It's funny, you mentioned it made you think of Top Gun. It wouldn't surprise me if part of the the pitch for this book was, hey, Top Gun Maverick made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Let me do some Top Gun Maverick style stories with Hal Jordan.
Yep.
So, all right, what are you rating Green Lantern issue 1?
I'm gonna give us a solid 8.
Yeah, I think I am too. It felt very fresh. Like I say, there's a couple of question marks as to like, okay, what is this book really going to be once it gets going? But at least right now, it was refreshing just to have a more grounded, back to basics Green Lantern story to start off with. So we'll see what they're actually doing going forward next issue.